First Serving family, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're adjusting to life in the new normal on what feels like day 437 of shelter in place. I'm excited to be sharing with you today. I'm especially excited about this week. This week is Holy Week. This is the week where we as believers can take time to refocus and remember on the gospel. We can remember the story of the cross. We can remember the story of Jesus' death, his burial, his resurrection, and we can be reassured about the hope that we have that one day he is coming back for his bride, for his church. This Holy Week is especially important for us as believers to do this. You know, in our daily lives, no matter what's going on, our hearts and our minds are prone to wonder and to shift our focus away from this living hope, as we learn in 1 Peter, on Jesus, to our current circumstances. And so this Holy Week, I pray it's a special week for you to be able to remind yourself of the hope that we have in the gospel. And the passage today will be in Matthew chapter 26. It's a story that's very familiar with a lot of us if we were growing up in the church. It's the story of Jesus' anointing. And in verse 6, the scene is set. Jesus and his disciples are in Bethany at the house of Simon, when all of a sudden, as they're gathered around the dinner table, a woman approaches. Now, Matthew doesn't identify this woman, but John's account of this event, we learn that it is Mary, the sister of Martha and Lazarus. And as Mary approaches Jesus, we see that she has an alabaster jar. And this alabaster jar is full of a very expensive ointment. Many biblical scholars say that this ointment today would be around $30,000, a year's salary. And what does Mary do as she approaches Jesus? Well, she breaks the flask open and she begins to pour it on Jesus' head. Well, that draws quite the reaction from Jesus' disciples. In verse 8, we see that when the disciples saw it, they were indignant. They were greatly annoyed at this act. And this is what they said: "Why this waste? For this could have been sold for a large sum and given to the poor." So what would Jesus say? What was Jesus' response to this act from Mary? Well, we see it in verse 10. "Why do you trouble this woman? For she has done a beautiful thing to me. For you always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. In pouring this ointment on my body, she has done it to prepare me for burial." You see, the importance of Mary's act is not in the value of what she poured on Jesus. The importance of Mary's act is in the identity of who she poured this oil on. Mary had anointed and prepared Jesus' body, the Son of God, for his burial just mere days later. And this makes me think about, what am I focused on with my life? And maybe it's a question for you to consider as well. What are you focusing your life on? Are you focusing it on good things, helping those around you? Or are you using your life as a spiritual act of worship, as Paul calls it in Romans chapter 12? Are you simply using your life to do good things? Or are you laying your life at the feet of Jesus and saying, "Here I am, Lord, use me"? I pray that you consider that today. I pray that you consider that this week, knowing that Jesus is worth every inch of your life. He's worthy of your whole life. I pray that you reconsider and you evaluate how you're using your life, especially in this pandemic. First Serving, I love you. I long for the day that we can gather again as a body. God bless you.